Located on the River Shannon, near the southern shore of Laffrey, is the Midlands' second most populous town with a population of 22,869 in the 2022 census. The town is approximately 143 kilometres from Dublin, and its name is Athlone.
In our modern world, to travel from Dublin to Athlone is approximately about an hour 20 minutes, an hour and a half, depends on which choice you make to travel there. But we're not going to be looking today at how the distance between travel or the choices that are made in our modern world. We're going to be looking at 1847 and how people travelled then. They didn't use cars or buses, they travelled on foot to Dublin.
Athlone stands on the border of County Roscommon and County Westmeath, Ireland. The town lies on the east bank of the river. In 1898, by the terms of the Local Government Act, 6 townlands on the west bank, formerly in County Roscommon, were incorporated into the town and, consequently, into the County of Westmeath. The River Shannon is the geographical and historical centre of Athlone. Throughout its early history, the ford of Athlone was strategically important, as south of Athlone the Shannon is impassable, while to the north the Shannon flows freely.
As you stroll its roads and lush paths along the River Shannon, you get the feeling of a spirited location. The old walls stand next to the modernism found in the architecture. The old castle stands guarding a contemporary art gallery. Boatmen in straw hats moor near the town centre. Not far the Shannon flows into the vast Lough Ree to show off its wildlife, its woodland, the walks, the restaurants and atmospheric old pubs. The sky, quiet streaks of garden green and bubbling blues like the sea and light reeds produce a sense of escape from everyday life. But like every county in Ireland, it is a place with a past.
Most of the counties in Ireland have a similar history, and that's a hard one. And the event that took place that would cause that to be a hard one was the famine. And with the famine came workhouses, and workhouses the poor laws, and Athlone and Roscommon didn't escape it.
However, during the famine years of 1845 to 50, the workhouse was greatly overcrowded, food was short, sanitation was poor, and diseases such as typhus fever and dysentery were widespread.
In 1847, a letter was written concerning the conditions that people found themselves in the workhouse. That letter detailed the actual horror that human beings were experiencing on this island at the hands of the Board of Guardians. What if the workhouse in Athlone was filled? Well, there was always the workhouse in Roscommon. That opened the stores. The object of the workhouse was get them in and make sure they don't want to stay. They were all structured equally bad.
In 1847, it is estimated that 1,500 people left Athlone and headed to Dublin. This journey was a harrowing experience. In the same year, Major Dennis Mann, landlord of Strokestown, evicted and then marched his tenants, men, women and children, to Dublin. The National Famine Way commemorates this walk. They do this by following the path the tenants were forced to take as they marched to Dublin in 1847. The trail, which goes along the Royal Canal towpath, offers a glimpse into their hardship and eventual forced emigration to Canada. The trail is marked by 32 pairs of bronze children's shoes, symbolising the young lives lost and the children who walked this path. In Dublin, the tenants were to be shipped to Liverpool and then onwards to North America. Not everyone made it to America. Some stayed in Dublin, the city with the worst slums in Europe. Others made it to the 5 Points in New York, a more harrowing place than they could have wished to be.
Dennis the Menace, the landlord. Let's go back to him for a moment. Consequently, in November of 47, Black 47, he was shot dead. And there was investigations and deeply rooted out people, and I think two people were hung for the crime, and another one was sent on a convict ship to Australia, which is an interesting phrase that's mentioned here, and it talks about gallows confession. That is an interesting term, don't you think? Gallows confession. Were they coaxed while they were in the gallows to give a confession? It stands to reason that maybe they were, but whoever is saying that, nobody knows. 3 men, 2 were hanged, 1 was sent on a coffin on a convict ship to Australia.
Reverend Michael McDermott was accused of inciting violence against the Major, which resulted in allegations by the aristocracy that his murder was caused by a Catholic conspiracy against Protestant landlords. After he died in 1847, an accusation was made against Reverend Michael McDermott. This accusation was made in Parliament by Lord Farnham of the Orange Order, stating that he incited violence against the deceased, which resulted in allegations by the aristocracy that his murder was caused by a Catholic conspiracy against Protestant landlords. Farnham argued that at the Sunday Mass before the slaying, McDermott maintained from the pulpit that the Major is worse than Cromwell and yet he lives. Cromwell
came to Drogheda, he left the place, sacked. The total of deaths was approximately over 3,000. And in Wexford, when he sacked Wexford, it was probably about 2,000. In those 2 events alone, it was over 5,500 murders. And yet, this guy said, worse than Cromwell, yet he lives.
McDermott rejected the accusation and remarked that the only reason for his murder was the infamous and brutal cruelties, which were wantonly and unnecessarily exercised against a tenantry, whose feelings were already wound up to woeful and vengeful exasperation by the loss of their exiled relatives, as well as by hunger and pestilence.
So the Reverend explains away the cause, the reason, the purpose, the motive for the murder, using words like infamous, brutal, cruelty, exasperations, wanting, and basically unnecessary. So he was a man, obviously, that caused a lot of pain unnecessarily for other human beings, and found themselves at the hand of some vengeful person who took his life, well, according to the Reverend.
Mullingar is a part of the National Famine Way. The route passes through the famine graveyard. The walk also features a bronze sculpture at the harbour. The Famine Memorial Fountain honours those who died during that horrific time.
Athlone, Roscommon and Mullingar, 3 towns situated close to one another, bordered. However, in our modern Ireland, the people that run the towns with open hands welcome tourists. There are tea rooms and cafes, there are public houses, art galleries. There's plenty to see and do, and fishing galore in a river that if it had a voice, what would it say? What stories would it tell us from ancient times in these 3 towns where there's plenty to do? But in 1847, when the people left Athlone, when they left Roscommon, when they left Mullingar, they head to Dublin, the city with the worst slums in Europe, for different reasons. They only had one thing to do, and that was to stay alive. But as the victims walked along the road, not all of them did survive. Just like the coffin ships that awaited some of them, and the turbulent seas they would travel on, the road to Dublin was a perilous one, where some, probably many, would lose their lives. As the priest would say his prayers over the deceased, "Come all you are thirsty, come to the waters, and you have no money, come buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without money, without cost. Why spend money in what is not bread, and your labour in what does not satisfy? Listen to me and eat what is good, and you will delight in the riches of fare. Give ear and come to me. Listen, that you may live. I will make a covenant with you, my faithful love promised to David." There's no possible way could we today in our modern world comprehend the journey those people went on. The Dublin that I was born into is vastly removed from the Dublin we see today. But the Dublin those people arrived in 1847 wouldn't even be recognisable.